Hello and welcome back to part 2 of Collaborative and Proactive Solutions. I hope everyone had a decent break, got up, moved around, got yourself a coffee. Before we start, I would like you to make sure you have a copy of the ALSIP, the problem solving plan, Plan B cheat sheet, drilling cheat sheet, Plan B meeting check sheet, and the plus minus interesting chart, either digitally or printed out. Right, so the second part today is mostly about the actual the practice of doing the CPS model. Now, the CPS model targets all of these lagging skills, from language processing, emotional regulation, social cueing, executive functions, and cognitive flexibility. Now, you might look at this and go, oof, some of my kids need all of those. And that's fair. Students who have not had their needs met for a long time tend to have a lot of unmet needs. So, what skills does the research tell us that behaviourally challenged kids are lacking? Well, mostly those related to executive functioning and problem solving, language processing, communication, emotional regulation, frustration tolerance, and cognitive flexibility. A good example of this is hindsight and forethought, which is the brain's ability to reflect on the past experience, solve current problems, and to project potential solutions into the future to determine the best way to proceed. If a kid is lagging in this essential skill, it's understandable why they have a problem resolving problems or planning out what they're going to do after recess or figuring out how they're going to deal with what we call a compound problem or a problem that has multiple steps in order to deal with it. So CPS is the process of identifying and acknowledging these skill deficits and then teaching these skills to students. For this, I'd like you to keep a student in mind for the next few activities. This one student will be the student that you essentially want to do this CPS model on. Thinking of that student, I would like you to get out your ALSIP form, the Assessment of Lagging Skills and Unsolved Problems. There's a picture of it on the slide right now. Additionally, there will be a file uploaded that has my own personal interpretation of this form, which tends to work a little bit better for teachers because it's on Word and it has the lagging skill directly opposite a place where you can take notes on examples. Have a play with both, see which one suits you. Right, with your student in mind, we're going to tackle the very first part of the ALSIP form, which is, does this student have difficulty maintaining focus? If this does not apply to your student, excellent. You're going to move on in a second. But if it does apply to your student, give it a nice big tick and then hold your horses because we're not moving on yet. Once you've found an area which a student has a lagging skill in, we need you to record all the times that you have experienced them having this lagging skill. Because a student doesn't always have difficulty maintaining focus. I tell you what, I've met plenty of kids that when it's math or literacy time, their focus is like, ooh, look, squirrel. But if they're playing Fortnite, they could go for hours. These lagging skills are very circumstance-based. And so we need to know the circumstances in which the lagging skill appears. So please note down on either the adjacent box if you're using my personal pro forma or underneath at the bottom of the unsolved problem sheet, which situations does the student have trouble with this lagging skill? Now, sadly, as I mentioned before, students who have had a long time without their needs being met typically will have a very long list of unmet problems, and that's okay. We need to get as many out as possible, and we will do some prioritization next. But right now, it's just about getting as many skills, as many unsolved problems down as we can think of. Now, this is also a working document. So in 5, 10, 15 minutes, 2 days, a week, whatever, one of those goes by and all of a sudden, yeah, I forgot they also do this. That's okay. Come back, reprioritize, have a look, pop it in there so we don't forget. These are working documents. So feel free to scribble on them as much as you want, as long as you're using them. Now, once you've written down all the examples you can think of, we move to the next one. So difficulty handling transitions, shifting from one mindset to another. If your student has that, give it a tick and write down all the examples you can again. Now, this is where I want to challenge some of your examples that you're giving. On my board, I have an example of a teacher's first time giving examples. And you know what? This is great. Why? Because it's down there and we can work with down. As long as it's on paper, we can work, we can shift, we can change them to meet the needs of the system. We just need to get them on paper first. Ideally, though, your unsolved problems will be free of biased language and free of challenging behaviour. For example, if Susie has difficulty with transitions and all of a sudden it's an unstructured day and we're going to music is fun or some other event, it's sports day and it's thrown her way off, she's got ASD and all of a sudden she's yelling and screaming and throwing tables. We don't want to write down in our unsolved problems when there is a special event on, Susie will throw tables. Because that doesn't help anyone. That just engenders bias in what we're talking about. So all we put down is, yes, she does have difficulty with transition, and you put down when the day is unstructured or when it's sports day or whatever the specific example is you would like to use. Our unsolved problems need to be free of theories. Teachers love to do this. We love to put down theories. Even on my example here, difficulty starting and maintaining conversations, entering into groups, etc. This student, yes, they seem not to know how to start a conversation and will approach others and say some random things. And then they've got a theory next to it, hoping to get a laugh, maybe, who knows. Well, this doesn't help our end goals either. We don't want theories. We're going to go ask the student why. So we don't want to influence our decision in any way. So we don't want any of that jargon. Next, our unsolved problems need to be split, not clumped. So a clumped problem is a problem with multiple steps to it. So Johnny has problems with focus during math. Well, that's a bit too broad. So we need to be as specific as possible. Who, what, and where, and when. So it's not all math, is it? When we really think about it, is it all math? No, Johnny really likes, playing with shapes and doing patterns and all that. It's really only when we have to do like addition, subtraction, order of operations stuff. Excellent. We've narrowed it down from all of math down to when we're doing some order of operations work, he just can't focus. Excellent. We can start from there. Then we can narrow it down further and further. Then we can go talk to them about the very specific unsolved problem that they have. So what I would like you to do is just to give this a bash to start with. Have a try. Go through the sheet with your student in mind and tick off. Do they have this lagging skill? And what problems does it cause for them? Don't worry if your sheet gets really, really long. That's okay. It happens. please pause the video and give it a try. Right, now that we're back, I'm sure you all are stressing out just all the work you have to do. And as I said, students with challenging behaviour, students who have not had their needs met for a really long time, tend to have a really long list of lagging skills. And it's just not tenable to ask you to focus on all these skills all at the same time. Especially if you have more than one student in your classroom, which we all inevitably do, that probably need an intervention like this. We need to prioritise the skills we want to develop, because it's not reasonable to ask you to do all of them. So we prioritise by high, medium and low. And all I want you to do is to pick 3 skills that you would like to prioritise that are your highest priority. So I tend to categorise high priority skills as safety skills. So if a student's a risk to themselves or to others, this will be the first skill I focus on. Following that, it's skills that impact all of their learning areas. And then finally, it's skills that are impacting their learning and the learning of others. Next are my medium priority skills. These are skills that are impacting 1 or 2 different areas of learning. They're skills that are impacting their social development or are developmentally inappropriate for the child's cognitive development. The last one is low priority skills. These are skills that present behaviours that are socially unacceptable or have a very small impact or extremely infrequent. Or they are skills that have a very low severity of behaviour. These are things like talking back. Once you've had a real good look at your different unsolved problems, I just want you to highlight 3 of them. These are the 3 we're going to work on today. Right, I would like you to get out your problem-solving plan. This is just a flowchart from Lives in the Balance to help us frame how we're going to go around doing the problem-solving with the student. It can be useful for making sure you follow the process of CPS, but also can be linked to our One Child One plans, our functional barrier and our functional barrier sheet. It's also excellent to make sure that we are fully aware of who is accountable for what, and that is documentation evidence of us doing an intervention. And finally, one of the reasons I like doing this is because it does have an actual planned review in it. So what I would like you to do is to take your flowchart, write your 3 high priority unsolved problems at the top, and underneath, who is responsible for doing the CPS process. That's all we want to start with there. Now we're actually going to go into the real nitty-gritty of CPS, but first, I'd like you to watch a video about empathy. Because as I said in the very start of this, CPS is an empathy-based model. So what does empathy mean?
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then We look and we say, hey, climb down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no. You want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with "at least." I had to, yeah. And we do it all the time, because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now. I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
Well, that's a little short by Brene Brown. She's absolutely excellent. I recommend her to anybody. Now, as you probably saw, the next part of the sheet is called the empathy step. So the first thing, now that you've identified the problem and you know who's going to be doing all the work around it, for lack of a better term, your next goal is to actually talk to the student. The empathy step is about gathering information, being empathic, understanding that the student is going through something and that there is something there impeding them to actually behaving adaptively. This student wants to, they just can't. And that can be challenging and that can be shame-inducing. The point of this step is to gather as much information about their issue as problem. About their issue as you can. So, and empathy is the cornerstone of connection. It will drive that student wanting to talk to you when you're not looking for their problems, when you're not trying to uncover why they did something. They'll come up and start talking to you about their issues as we do this empathy step more and more with them. Because ultimately, students right now are not used to getting their concerns heard. It's very much a system of adults unilaterally deciding what happens to students. Now, the empathy step tends to start with the what's up. So this is the reason why we've removed all that biased judgment speak from our unsolved problems, because we're now going to use that unsolved problem to talk to the student about their condition, about what's happening to them. So we take our unsolved problem. So mine is Katie's been late to the bus, or Katie's been having issues on the bus. She's being bullied on the bus. I don't know yet. So I've noticed you've had problems on the bus, Katie. What's up? It's that easy. But we need to be prepared. We need to be prepared for the answers. And sometimes we get answers that we just don't want. Sometimes it can be very challenging to be empathic with our students, because empathy requires a certain type of vulnerability. We have to remember what it was like to be in their shoes and to realize, yeah, that sucks. That's difficult. Let's find a way to solve that problem with you. So you've gone to a student, you've decided, yep, this is what we're doing. We're gonna work with Katie. We're gonna try and figure out why she's having problems on the bus. We don't know what those problems are yet. So we're going to, I've noticed you've been having issues on the bus lately. What's up? Well, there's a few things that they can do. The young person could say something. This is undeniably the best thing, because when a student is talking, you can keep them going. But especially with students who haven't had their concerns listened to for a very long time, they're unlikely to think that you're there to listen to them. They're going to think, what are they trying? Why is this different? Another thing they can do is say nothing. The young person could say that, no, that's not a problem. I don't know what you're talking about. This is very common. The young person could say that they just don't want to talk about it, or they could get defensive. So when the student does say something, this is the best outcome. We're going to use this to drill down to understand what their perspective on the situation is. I want you to use reflective listening and clarifying statements. Find out the who, what, when, where, and whys of the problem. Katie, I've noticed you've been having issues on the bus. What's up? And she starts talking about, the girls that they just keep on talking to her. They keep on picking at her, and you just let her talk to you about it. Ask her who. Ask clarifying questions. I'm not quite sure I understand. What are they saying? Or I'm not sure I understand. Did I hear you right? Are they saying this? Ask about when it occurs and when it doesn't occur. So Katie, does this always happen, or is it just on Wednesdays? Ask the student about what they think is driving this. Why do you think that they're picking on you, Katie? And this isn't the time for kid gloves either. We're having a proper conversation with this child. If there are any discrepancies that you've observed, call them out on it. We're not going to try and trap this child in a lie, but if you've noticed that Katie said, oh, it only happens on Wednesdays, blah, 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 and you go, well, what about last Friday when we had an issue? Or the Monday just gone? What happened then? It's not about trying to catch them in the lie. It's trying to gain more information. It's not about you were lying to me. It's, oh, no, I want to understand, is this a different concern or is this the same concern? Right now is not the time to focus on solutions. That comes later. Trust me, that definitely comes later. Right now is just gathering as much information as possible. Your job is to stay as neutral as possible as well. You're just there to document their concerns. It's about actively listening. And don't rush this process. If a student wants to talk to you about it, let them. Make sure that they have nothing left to say. These students are going to test you to start with to make sure that you're not doing just a tricky form of plan A. Now, what actually concerns most teachers when they implement the CPS model is not when a student says something, it's when they do all the other things other than say something. The first one is they say, I don't know, or they just won't talk to you about it. Well, you can think out loud, maybe they've never thought of this before, or maybe no one's ever asked them about it. How long has it been since someone's actually thought about them? Or perhaps they need time to think. Or they might be having trouble verbalizing their response. So ask yourself, was your question actually specific enough? Was it free of their behavior? Did you go, Katie, I've noticed that you've been getting on fistfights on the bus a lot. What's up? That's immediately going to put Katie on the defensive, isn't it? So we need to make sure that we have a statement free of judgment when we go to ask the student what their problem is. And free of theory. You don't want to go, Jonathan, I see you've been rocking up late to school a lot. That's because your mum and dad are breaking up, isn't it? Tell me what's up with that, mate. That's not going to endear you to this student either. So was your question free of theory? And the last one is the one new practitioners get caught up in a lot. Are you really just waiting for a turn to tell them what to do? Are you really just using this as a way to mask you telling them what you want them to do? It's time to get comfortable with some prolonged silences, because some of these kids, they will need time to process what you're asking them. And that's okay. You can come back to it. You can use plan C. You can put it on the shelf for now, but you'll come back to it later. The next thing that a student can do is get defensive. Then you go, there's no problem. So this is always an opportunity. Find out more information. So there's often, when a student says there's no problem, there's often something that's impeding the student from being able to talk about it. So ask the young student, well, I've noticed this behavior happening. What do you think the problem is? I've noticed you were having this struggle. What do you think the problem is? And then we start the process all over again. We go back to that reflective listening. Really try to drill down to what is the thing impeding their skill, their ability to engage. They go, I don't want to talk to you, or I just don't want to talk. Well, assume there's a good reason for that. Give them permission to talk. Of course they can talk. And try to talk to them about why they don't want to talk. And ultimately, they're not wrong. No, Katie, you don't have to talk to me right now. That's okay. This can often throw them off because they're not used to that. They're used to having to explain themselves. No, it's okay, Katie. If you don't want to talk to me, that's fine. But we still need to discuss this. Why don't you pick another time when we can come back and talk about this? And if they throw at you never, well, then you get to decide. Well, I still need to talk about this with you then, Katie. How about we come back and talk about it tomorrow or in a couple of days? I'll give you some time to think about it. This can often be enough to have a student do some thinking about why they're having this reaction to an unsolved problem. And the last one is, I don't have to talk to you. Well, reassure them that no, they actually don't. But you're not in trouble. I'm trying to figure out what's happening with you. You've got to struggle really hard, and you're going to struggle really hard with some students about not dipping into plan A and not telling them off for not talking to you or putting you in trouble. Oh, you don't want to talk to me? Fine, you can go to the office then. That's not engaging in plan B. That's telling them what to do again. And that's okay. We all fall into that trap. But it's about really reflecting on how we're talking to these students. So the empathy step is about using these strategies to get as much information. It's an information gathering process to start with. This information gathering process is really helped by drilling. Now, you'll find attached to the documents that I gave out something called the drilling cheat sheet. This is a nice little go-to referral sort of document to help you figure out what are some different questions or tactics I can go to help really drill down on what the problem is for a student. Drilling is really about effectively using clarifying statements. One of the ones I use the most is mirroring. So I see that Kimmy is making a sound that's annoying you. Can you say more about that? After they just told me that Kimmy's making an annoying clicking sound at the back of the class. Or, Katie, I hear you say that these girls are really annoying you on the bus. Can you tell me more about that? What are they doing? It's just that continued information gathering. It's your biggest weapon is to have all the information so you can come to a more holistic intervention with the student. So some of the best ways to do that reflective listening is to ask those how so, or say, I don't quite understand. Oh, Johnny, you're always late, but you're saying that you get up in the morning on time and you know your parents drive you to school. I don't understand why we can't get to school then. Could you help me with that? What time are you waking up? How long does it take to have breakfast? You say, I'm confused. You need to be okay to admit defeat in that one. Like, I'm confused. I don't understand. Can you please break it down further for me? Refer to the drilling sheet if you need to, but it's all about listening to what the student is saying and just asking those further clarifying questions, the how so's, I don't understand, can you say more, what do you mean? When you feel like you've gotten enough information out of the student, not even enough information, all of the information out of the student about what their concerns are around this particular unsolved problem, we move on to the define adult concern step. Now, I'm going to get a bit confusing here in that I actually recommend for teachers that are just starting the CPS model that they fill in the problem-solving plan, but actually consider their adult concern alongside their unsolved problem. So you can fill this in when you're starting before you investigate with students, before you do the empathy step, because often teachers aren't really good, I'll be honest, at doing the adult concern step. It's challenging to try and figure out why this is actually a concerning behaviour. Katie's on the bus. She's gone off, had a fight with some girls because they're picking on her. What's your actual concern there? Well, you know, your concern might be, well, that takes a big chunk out of my day. If that's your concern, then that's your concern. But what is the student's behaviour actually impacting? Safety, health, learning, development? So one of the ones that I've used before is specifically like, Jimmy, I feel like you're not enjoying my lessons and that you don't respect me when you yell and scream at the back of my class. This makes me really upset and frustrated because I feel like a bad teacher. And it takes learning time away from yourself and from others when you do these things. That's my concern. So how can we bridge your concern, my concern? Or maybe, you know, I'm concerned that when you're punching the walls and you're going to hurt your hand, that scares me. And I'm afraid you're going to hurt yourself and that you're going to get in trouble. You need to be prepared to be vulnerable with your students. If you genuinely want them to acknowledge that their behaviour is having an effect beyond what they intend it to do, beyond that gain, escape, or avoid. The define adult concern step is not about a power struggle. It's not about getting your needs met over getting the student's need met. It's about making sure that both of your cards are on the table. So the student has defined their concerns during the empathy step. These are all the problems I'm having. And then you can then reveal to them your problems. These are the problems I'm having. And that's okay. It's okay to have problems as a teacher. So I want you to take this sheet, and for your unsolved problems, tell me, what is your actual concern? Is it that it takes a lot of time away from your teaching ability? Is that it affects the learning of others? Are they hurting themselves? Tell me, what's your concern? Before even talking to the student, you should be able to tell me your concern. As you get more practice with the CPS model, you'll be able to relate your concerns in response to the empathy step. But right now, I find it really good practice to just start with being able to define your concerns first, because this tends to be the stumbling block for teachers when they get to this point after the empathy step. Right, so we've looked at what the problem is. We've spoken to the student about their issues and about what they're feeling and about what's happening. We've defined our concern. The next step is the invitation step. This is the step where you actually start getting things done. So your goal in this step is to collaborate for a durable solution that is realistic and mutually satisfactory. So start with a recap and review of the last two steps. Recap what's happening for the student in the empathy step. What did they tell you? And then make sure that they understand what your concerns are. And then invite the student to have a shot at, all right, if these are your concerns and these are my concerns, what do you think we could do? And I think you'll be pleasantly surprised about some of the really creative solutions that students come up with. Now, I want to put out that you are a problem-solving team. This is a collaborative approach to problem solving, but you know what? It never hurts to build some trust and reciprocity by giving the student the first crack at it. And because you are a problem-solving team, means you both need to get your needs met. So it's okay to tell a student that I don't think that is going to address all of our problems. Now, sometimes one solution might not cover all the concerns, and that's okay. It's okay to have multiple solutions. And you know what? Sometimes the solutions don't work, and that's okay as well. Make sure you review with the student that these are our solutions, but if they don't work, it's okay. We will come back and do this again until we find a solution that does work. There's a saying out there, I can't recall who it's from, that all good solutions are based off of the 99% that didn't work. This is an iterative process, which means that if you want a durable and realistic solution that travels with this student over time, then you need to constantly readdress it. Is it working? Is it not? Now, believe it or not, you've gone through the entire process now. You've decided, or you've gone down your concerns about a student's unsolved problems and lagging skills. You've spoken to them about those concerns and gathered information from them. You've told them what your concerns are, and you've put in an intervention. Now, it's just about review and monitoring. No intervention lasts forever. Things change in a student's life, things change in a teacher's life. And sometimes things pop up that we didn't know were a concern to start with. Remember to set a time for a review and keep that time. And remember that this is an incremental process. We build upon our past failures. We stand on the shoulders of giants. We are not miracle workers. Things take time and effort, and we need to build upon them. So it's okay for an intervention not to work. What's not okay is to not review that intervention, and try again. The Plan B process is about indirectly teaching those lagging skills through this intervention. The student knows how to self-regulate, so they can start regulating their own responses to behaviour, helps teach them those negotiation skills and how to get their needs met. So there is no harm at all in doing this process with a student multiple times for the same unsolved problems. In fact, it reinforces the skills you are trying to build with this model. So every failure is actually another step in the right direction. Please make sure you fill in the problem-solving plan. It's about your accountability. And it's hard to have multiple students flying around with different interventions and having to do different things with a bunch of different students, all that have different individualized, personalized interventions. That's hard. And it's hard to keep track of. Use the plan to help you. It's not there just to be another piece of paperwork. And remember that you are not infallible. Mistakes will happen, and that's okay. If you have that relationship with your students, they should be able to tell you, this is what the problem was. This is what we agreed to do. You forgot. And yeah, sometimes we forget. I'm guilty. I forget all the time, especially when I've got 30 kids running on different interventions for 30 different things. It can be hard. So now the easy part is done, believe it or not. You have your unsolved problems, you've prioritized them, you've started your problem-solving chart for accountability, you've done your adult concern, and I guess now, since you're not in total cognitive overload, there's one more place I would like to go. And that's actually doing it. So there's one thing you can't really do through this PD, and that's doing the actual empathy step. So I'd like you to try and make a commitment. Just do it with one student. Just pick the student that you did today and pick one unsolved problem and go have a talk to them about it. Go do the empathy step. Go do the adult concern step and put in a solution. Do an intervention and see how it works. You might find it really clicks for you. No one is asking you to take on the entire discipline system at once. What I'm asking you to do is try it with one student at a time, one problem at a time. And if it doesn't work, go back, have another play with it. And remember, you're not alone in this. My email is up on the screen, ben.simmons@sa.gov.au. Reach out. I am more than happy to talk about this. I will answer all your questions. I am happy to come in to sites to support teachers who are doing this work. Please feel free to reach out. Have a try. That's all we're asking. That's all I'm asking. Are you going to suck at it? Is it going to suck? Probably. The CPS model takes us out of our comfort zone. It asks us to work with students and not just tell them what to do. This will be challenging and there will be pushback. And some of your deeply held beliefs about education and how education works will be put on display. CPS is a coaching model for students to develop their skills, but likewise, it's a coaching model for you. Have a play with it. Give it a try. If it fails, if everything falls apart, send me an email, give me a call. I can support you in this process. All you need to do is make a commitment and start. Now, there is one last document in your packs. This is a plus, minus, and next step or PMI chart. I would love it if you could fill it in, and you can keep it for yourself or send it off to me. I would love your feedback. Please feel free to email me, ben.simmons@sa.gov.au. This is the first time I've had to do these online sorts of professional development, so I would really appreciate any feedback you can offer. Once again, just give it a shot, and if everything falls apart, please shoot me an email and I'm happy to assist. Thank you so much for surviving with me today, and I hope you all have an excellent term 1.